Amazing, Phil. Well, thank you for the time, by the way. I didn't mention that before, but
You're more than welcome.
thank you. Let's see. Let's just get everything. Let's get the foundations. Let's get a very quick introduction. You don't have to go super in depth, 30, 60 seconds. Who are you? What's the brand? What's the story?
Well, the brand it started with me basically, and I started in the nitty-gritty of factories. So I worked for a production company where I was doing the production for big brands, spending about 80% of my time within the factories and 20% of my time with the brands, and kind of finding the love for factories and how they work, and then also the materials. Which is basically where my inspiration always comes from. So what they make, the mills, the knitters, became my inspiration to kind of work together with them and create something. Yeah, that became me love, basically.
I was muted. Sorry. Understood. And where did this specific idea to start a brand come from? Like, did you notice something working in the factories that, oh, there's a very unique opportunity to do something like this, or was it just, oh, I just want to start a fashion brand. I want to express myself. Like, what?
No, definitely not that, because I'm not necessarily an entrepreneur at heart. But just being in factories and in mills so much, also seeing how they need to operate and how they're not being allowed to operate by a lot of companies, kind of made me want to cooperate with them in a different way. That's one. Two is in every single factory, whether it's huge or whether it's tiny, the leftovers, right? So this is obviously everybody has been talking about it. But I saw it for 10 years during all my travels. And just the thought of these stocks and how many beautiful collections we could make out of those laying there just kind of broke my heart. So the wastefulness definitely is one of them. Reasons I started it, and the materials themselves. So yeah, I think that was the initial idea, just to only do leftovers, work with small numbers, and then kind of put, like, I don't know, oh, my English.
No,
This
it's
is the
okay.
part that's
No, it's again. Take as long as you need. This is all for.
um, just kind of make it purposeful again, because there is beautiful stuff out there, and nobody knows about it, and also the manufacturers want to get rid of it because it's just a waste of time, money, and energy for it being there. So yeah, that was my first idea and inspiration to start the brand, just have leftovers. But it became quite difficult to do that, because obviously you're not known yet, you don't have a name, you're not on Instagram, you don't know if whatever you're going to make with the product is going to resonate with any buyer or any customer. Also, you're last in line when you're producing these small quantities. So yeah, during COVID, uh, it was hectic. And that first collection, that was a summer collection, was going to be delivered in September. So at that point, which was about May or so, I thought, okay, so this might not work being as small as I am. I have to see if people resonate with the brand and with the shapes, with the materials. So I put out a small collection with Italian and Japanese fabrics that I knew were with great mills that were, lasting qualities, and kind of combined them with the leftover materials just to make sure that we could show something in time. And that did resonate with the customer. So the plan going forward from that moment was, okay, so we'll try to grow to be able to start working with these leftovers on a bigger scale that has more impact, and that actually kind of makes more sense, because you need those numbers, and we'll combine them with materials that are good, long lasting, and precious.
Yeah, so it was mostly the challenge of the big gap, right? Of having an idea, especially an idea based on like that stock fabrics, to
Yeah.
a brand that has products that are selling to customers predictably, reliably, at a profit, at volume. There's a
Yeah,
very
because
long process and tedious process in between those two things.
definitely. And you know, the goal is to be sustainable or do something that is right for the industry, but the industry is not there yet. So you have to kind of find your way around it to be able to get somewhere at least.
Right.
But that's a challenge. It
Okay.
just is because you're new and you're tiny.
And what was the first step for you in that journey? Was it developing one product? Was it straight into developing collections? Was it developing one product and selling it through a website?
No, so the idea was to sell what the idea is to sell basic items where the fabrics speak for themselves. So that is layering and that is multiple types of garments. And to kind of also create a world in that so people would feel comfortable in sorry, I lost my track of thought.
Think about it. So the first step was developing a line of basics. So it was very focused on developing the products and
Yeah,
also
just
yeah.
the products itself and just the shapes itself that sorry, I keep forgetting my line of thought.
No, it's okay.
Pick
Take your
me up
time.
again.
All right. So again, the first step on kind of like this big journey, which was very product focused first, like getting the products right, because it was very, very line of basics. Then what else had to, what was the other first step in this journey of having this idea and then actually taking this to market with customers at scale?
I guess finding the fabrics themselves, just finding which fabrics, which fabric mills are willing to work with us because we are small, so we oftentimes don't get our MOQs yet. But then still you want to have fabrics that are connected to the brand and that are connected to the shapes that you are looking for. And the shapes itself, they are very easy. They are wearable, you know, in itself, shapes are very easy because you have round shapes, you have squares, you have, and that kind of relates to whatever you're wearing and how you're feeling. You have small, medium, and oversized. It can also all be like in a grid. It just kind of depends on the fabrics, what you're going to make with them. So finding mills, finding the fabrics that would kind of become the core essence of the brand was something that was part of step one, I guess.
Interesting. Okay. And what was the biggest challenge getting the brand to that position? Was it mostly logistics? Was it sourcing? Was it financing and cash flow?
No, it was for me like the production and the logistics. I like that's been the easy part because I've been
Because
in that
working
business
in the
for a
industry,
long
yeah.
time. The financing was also okay for me. The sales and putting yourself out there, the marketing, PR, visibility of everything is still a challenge because that's not my forte.
To
You
be
know,
honest,
like
I think nowadays that's kind of like a strength because it's usually the opposite.
oh, it doesn't feel like a strength because it feels like, you know, like you stay under the radar so much um while you do know what you're doing, and that's a little bit frustrating sometimes, to be honest. Oh, I don't hear you.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. But yeah, before I ask you about that, because that's a very interesting problem that I want to talk about. Let's still stick with the foundation. So you said production logistics was good because that's what your background is.
Yeah.
So let's take an opportunity to maybe share. What would you tell Fleur that didn't have that experience and that background, how to approach this at the very, very early stages? Because specifically production on logistics is probably the biggest problem for young brands.
um be organized. Be very organized. Try and get your numbers right. Work with Excel sheets. Be super clear, organized, and administrative. I think a lot of people I mean, it is a tedious task, but it needs to be done. And it makes that you have the freedom to take time to think creatively and to take steps in new directions if everything in the back is organized. Take that time and take it, like, whether you're not good at it, find somebody to do it for you. That is always worth the money because it gives you peace of mind. Production needs to be on time and it needs to be organized. Finances need to be done on time, need to be organized. Dive into it and learn how to do that.
Okay, and is that person that you're talking about typically a business partner? Is it a hire? Is it a freelancer? Is it an agent? Is it a
I
vendor?
mean, it can be a business partner. You have to be really lucky to find a business partner that is aware of those things, especially in the creative field, to find a match like that. But it can also be a parent, literally, to help you get started, or it can be, I don't know. You try and train yourself, and if you don't work out, then you hire somebody to help you out on how to get knowledge. Always try to get that kind of knowledge your own, because otherwise you don't know what's going on in your business. And if your knowledge goes to a certain point, you can hire somebody to kind of do the finishing touches on that area, or to kind of improve you in that area. There's plenty of people, like I've personally helped a lot of young brands for free, because I know that's difficult. That, like how to do your pricing sheets, how to build your line plans, how to where to how to make a tech pack. I don't know, that kind of stuff. Try and find people around you to help you set that up,
Right.
because it is the most important part of your business, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah, and I think that having complete ignorance in that part of your business is where you can make the the most catastrophic mistakes early on. Because production
Yeah.
mistakes are big mistakes. There's no
Killing
small
you.
mistake. Yeah, there's no small mistakes in production. Um, okay. And when it comes to the learning process, because this is also what's difficult, right? Learning usually comes with experience. Experience usually comes from mistakes. Mistakes in production are very expensive and very risky, right? So it's how do I learn the most while decreasing the amount of mistakes that I have to make? So is there courses? Is there YouTube videos? Is it simply about finding the right kind of like mentors? Um, what do you think
I
would be the
think
most efficient learning process?
I think mentors are very important. Reach out to people that you find on LinkedIn, ask them to have coffee with you. Most people are really open and willing to do that. And whatever you take from those conversations, you have to be diligent in taking the notes and following through on tips and tricks that they're telling you to do. Again, like, it is not rocket science, but you have to dive in to kind of get that knowledge just from anywhere. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Perfect.
Tutorials, I never looked at tutorials. Or find a different job next to your job, or do an internship 1 day a week at a production development internship. See how other brands are handling stuff, and see the problems that they run into. Like, if you're starting 1 day a week at an internship, that's really okay. I think you might be able to manage doing that, even if it's, like, for 3 months. Any kind of information that you can find, and put yourself out there to kind of yeah, grasp.
Understood. Okay. And then, okay, understood. Then let's transition into the challenge then. Biggest challenge for you, as you said, has been more the marketing, communications, and sales aspect, right?
It's terrible.
Okay. Tell me more about it. Like let's put a
I
pin on the
mean,
problem. What is the problem people don't know the brand? Is it the problem? How do I sell and build the online sales infrastructure? What is, let's pinpoint where everything comes from.
all of the above. So this I'm 42. I didn't grow up with the generation of Instagram and Facebook and the likes. So I'm teaching myself. I don't have a lot of budget for PR, for marketing to kind of throw it at at somebody.
Let's test it out.
My website, I built it myself. I taught myself how to do it, and I just started doing it, and then I'm better at it. I'm not gonna say I'm good at it, but I'm getting better at it. So this, even at 42, is a learning curve. Same goes with Instagram. Same goes with finding new sales online. Like how do I get people to see me? And again, once you become a little bit bigger, it's easier to hire people for that. But at the moment, even I also have to dive in myself, and then I will hire somebody to fine tune how I would see fit. But it's a process, and there's also part of it which I really don't like. Maybe it is because I'm not used to it as much. But I think, yeah, for me, it's never about, yeah, it's about a feeling and about a world. I do understand that, but it's always about the product. So I would always like people to see and feel the product and to kind of experience it and not buy it because I put an ad on Instagram that went somewhere and somewhere and somewhere, or because somebody tells them, oh, this is, yeah, I don't know. Like I haven't wrapped my brain around it yet. Like, I
Understood.
guess.
Yeah, so you're not, it's just not what you're good at. You're good at one thing and not the other. It's very, very normal. Interesting. And why not just focus on wholesale then?
Um, I mean, one goes always with the other at this point, I think. At any moment when you are selling anything to anybody, people will look at your Instagram. They will look at who you are, what you're doing, and how they put importance to it. So whether it's wholesale, retail, it's just very, yeah, it's very normal at this point to have a huge social outing, I think, and that's, yeah, just really a challenge for me at this point.
Interesting. Okay, understood. Um, but to be honest, like I think the biggest like clear strength from a distribution perspective is again, you have a lot of wholesale accounts for the size. No, not the size, but relative to the relative awareness of a brand, not very typical.
I think that depends also a lot on the market. So the Japanese market, they will also run with your product and do a lot of their own PR and online promotion of any brand. But that doesn't happen in the US or in Europe as much. So the Japanese are really focused on finding these customers that do, like that they do have already. So yeah, I think that's specific to the area.
Interesting. Okay, and how did you approach wholesale? Because to be honest, I think there's a lot of things that people can learn from just the natural results of having good production infrastructure. Because in general, wholesale is very advanced for like the typical fashion entrepreneur, because the typical fashion entrepreneur doesn't understand production. It's the other way around. Typically, they know design and they know how to create good products. And maybe they understand because they're younger, they understand how to push it through social media. But then when it comes to having the infrastructure that is required to be able to be in wholesale, they have no idea how to approach it. So for you, I guess the question that I want to ask is how did that everything happen? Was it simply about, as you said, working on the product, working on the production infrastructure, working on the logistics, and then just finding the right agents?
Basically. So basically it's about finding the right agent, which I was lucky with because I got Rainbow Wave quite early on, about after 2 seasons. They signed me up, but I also did, like push it very, like I would send emails and emails with lookbooks and with campaign images to different kinds of agents, also to stores, just to kind of get into their system. Because once people see your name 2 times, 3 times in an email, and they kind of like what they see, the fourth time maybe they will give you an appointment,
Right.
because then they're ready for it, or then they have a gap in their
Yeah, and their brand mix, they need a brand like this, or their
exactly.
it's changed, and yeah.
Also list of customers, of agents. Who do I want to approach? Who do I want to attract? My Excel sheets are endless. And just reaching out and keep trying, keep trying. And then once you do get with an agent, the first 2 seasons I did my own showroom actually in Paris, and just sent out like tons and tons of emails with the lookbooks to retailers, and there, that also did work. You would get 6 appointments, 10 appointments, and then you get your first 2 American customers, and then, but it's just perseverance, and reaching out and trying to get yourself out there. Not just designing stuff, just
Yeah, sending
pushing it.
emails and pushing the brand. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, and
Yeah, you remember this, I'm sure.
I don't even think I could look at my cold emailing history. It would probably be I've probably sent cold emails in the tens of thousands.
It is
Not more.
terrible.
Yeah, yeah,
It's terrible. But then once we did get the agents, then you obviously see a lot more customers pass by during the fashion weeks. And then you do hear like, oh yeah, I remember this brand. I've had it in my separate folder. I was like, okay, yeah, like it would have been super nice if I had known that you kind of thought there might be something to it, because all the time I wasn't getting any feedback. I was like, okay, do people love this or they don't? Or like you get like down, but people do actually remember, and they do kind of
yeah,
follow you.
you have to essentially persist your way into them giving you a 5 minutes of attention.
Yes, perseverance. And then once you do meet them also in real life, it's so different than when you're like just sending out bulk blasting emails.
Right.
It's yeah.
Interesting. And what can you tell me about the pros versus the cons of the approach you've had to starting fashion brands? Essentially, a very production, or I would get a very back end driven kind of like fashion operation versus like the traditional very front end focused operations with low focused on the back ends. What can you tell me about the pros and cons of running a fashion brand like that?
Sorry, I didn't understand what you mean.
Sorry, so there's basically two aspects of running the brand. Everything that's on the kind of like front end, which is the marketing, the
Yeah.
sales, everything that has direct kind of like contact with customers. Most
Yeah.
fashion brands tend to be good at that, especially early stage, but bad at the back end, that everything that happens kind of like behind, which is the logistics, the supply chain, the production. For you, it's the reverse, right? So what can you tell
Yes,
me about
totally.
the pros and cons of running a fashion brand in that position?
Listen, it is very nice to know exactly how much your products cost, how much you're gonna have delivered when, to know how much margins you do have, to know what your cash flow is, what your liquidity is. It gives a security to the brand that allows us to expand in the areas, one, we're not good at, but also that allows us to think freely,
Yeah, make
right? Because
decisions.
we can now make decisions based on facts instead of feeling. And we can have the freedom of having the feeling as well, because we have the time, because everything is organized. So that makes it that the longevity is just much better, because we know what's going on financially. That's a very, very calming and stable place to have. The cons is that, you know, we're also having to dive into something that's unknown to us. So it goes both ways, right? It's if you have a stability of followers or a stability of people that are interested in brand, you know that that's gonna continue to grow, and then that gives you time to kind of get all the other stuff in place. For me personally, it's important to know first about the money and how you're going to perform as a brand, rather than just getting the people's likes.
Yeah, understood. Okay. And what about the money? Because I mean, I've never, my approach has always been more traditional. Like actually, to this day, it's still what you're good at. It's still what I'm terrible at. Um, what about the money? Because it sounds that building good production infrastructure is very expensive.
It is.
So did you finance it yourself? Did you get
Yeah,
investors? Did
yeah.
you?
No, I did finance it myself, and I'm in a position where I now can, but 20 years ago I couldn't. So in that sense, I've worked hard for 20 years, and I have a little bit of leeway to do that, but still it is definitely a challenge. So let's say in the odd case that we double next year, then of course I have to go to the bank and see what's up, you know, because we're not getting deposits from everybody. If you're working with the bigger companies, they will pay you at a net 30 rate. So you have to wait until you have produced, until you have
Yeah,
shipped.
you don't have
And
cash essentially. You're
you
operating
don't
a
have
business
the
with
cash
you.
flow. No, exactly. So what I do try to do is also work with the factories to kind of see at what point in the season is the low season, and I will have them produce at that point so they will have better prices. So factories always have a high season where everybody wants everything right before the deadline of everybody. If you do try and produce in low season, you might get better prices, you get faster deliveries. They are more flexible and eager to work with you if you think also for them. So those are kind of things that can help you with the cash flow. Also, you know, when do you need to order which fabrics also might help with the cash flow situation. Let's say if I'm working with a stock fabric and I know that they will always have stock, I might order that a little bit later when I know that money is coming in again. So it's just kind of logical thinking, and working with the manufacturers, with the mills, to see what can be best for both parties.
Right. So it's logical, organized, and with an understanding of what is in the best interest of all the parties involved, so that you can
Yes.
negotiate as efficiently as possible.
Yes, it's very important to keep an open discussion with these people, because these are the people that need to perform for you as well, right? So I always make sure that I pay them on time. Those kind of little things, I give them attention. I ask them for their feedback, for their information, and I really try and work with that. And I think that makes a big difference.
Hmm, very interesting. And can you give us an overview of what building that production infrastructure looked like on the early days? Was it like
Yeah.
have, I don't know, let's say $20,000, right? Because I guess that's kind of like the figure that everybody puts in their mind first. How does it get distributed? Assuming that you don't have to pay yourself.
So if you sell $20,000, you
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Okay. I remember that.
Again,
Um,
assuming you're not paying yourself, right? Because
no,
that's
no, no,
obvious.
no.
Yeah, yeah.
You never pay yourself. Just the bare necessities, really. No, I remember that because in the beginning I was sharing an office space with another designer brand. So you share your office space to kind of reduce your costs. And we had and we still have freelancers that did that whole production here in the studio. So that was a huge challenge, but it was fun. And I think most of the people that look back to their early stages, like those kind of first orders, you kind of rally together and you get it out there, you order your care labels from wherever and you kind of make it work and do it. So the first production we did here in-house, and it was 30 degrees in summer. One of the girls who did the production is actually still back there. Yeah, you go, you do something because nobody in China is going to do it for you. Nobody in Portugal is going to do it for you. It's like 3 pieces here, 5 pieces there. So you find people around you. Second production, half and half, I would say. I did a couple of like
So like
some
maybe like
high.
half for like prototyping and sampling, and the other half for
No, half and half of the of production itself. I did half in the factory and half here in the studio.
like
A couple of styles that were quite difficult, I would do in an atelier somewhere in the south of Holland, and then knowing I would get less margin, but also knowing that La Garçon was ordering that. So I was like, okay, I don't care. I'll have my margin cut in half.
wow. Okay. And what are the most important people to have during a process like that? Is it pattern cutters? Like, what does the foundational team look like, whether they're in-house or freelancers, right?
Um, I think the seamstresses and the pattern cutters. But that's also because I have the knowledge of the production and the logistic part, which is kind of easy for me. So in my case, definitely the girls that work in the atelier that help me make the samples, that help me with the patterns, because that's where I need most help with. The creative aspect I can do, fabrics I can do, and production I can do, but yeah, those are the most important.
Interesting, but essentially you need, I mean, somebody not in your situation would be essentially need a seamstress or a pattern cutter, somebody that can actually make everything themselves.
Yeah,
Somebody that is handling the production. So how do we get the right production partners in place to make this happen at specific volumes, on deadlines, at margins? And then somebody that's handling all the logistical aspects, right? Like this is lost here. What do we do if this fabric is not being shipped here properly, like stuff like that. So essentially logistics, production, and pattern makers slash seamstresses.
definitely. And you might often have to do what you don't want to do if it's your own brand. You have to be okay with doing what you don't want to do because it is your responsibility to kind of get it done.
That's what you signed up
Right.
for.
Yeah. So packing boxes till, I don't know, whatever hour. Yeah, you got to do it. You got to be tough and do a lot of things you don't want to do. And oftentimes that becomes that you can't really do much of the stuff that you do love to do until you grow a little bit. So you grow a little bit and you can put people in those positions.
Mm,
Yeah.
fascinating. Okay. And what
I
about
mean,
yeah, go ahead, sorry.
no. I mean, yeah, it that was it. Don't worry.
Amazing. So, and what about the current bottleneck? I know it's more on the sales, overall distribution side, but what about it specifically as the bottleneck is profit margins are too small to like kind of like find key hires? Is it just plainly an ignorance
Yeah.
problem? Like you don't even know who to hire? What is the biggest bottleneck right now, you think, for the brand?
Um, definitely, um, definitely the sales. Like it is, I have put my pricing quite low, to be honest, in
Yeah,
compared
you
to the
have really
fabrics
good
that I
prices, yeah.
Yeah, and compared to the fabrics that I do choose, because I think the fabrics obviously are the most important part of my brand, the combination of the fabrics and the shapes. We also we well, that's design, but I don't want to skimp on that, but I also do feel like a customer needs a fair price, right? Um, so I ideally don't want to increase my margins so much, because I would also not necessarily buy a 1,500 euro shirt or blouse in a store, and or you do that once and then you you know you stick to that blouse for the next 10 years. So I want prices to be fair, so my margins are quite low, and they are low because my
Yeah,
quantities
plus you're
are not
selling
high.
wholesale, so margins are even lower. Yeah.
They're crazy, and I'm dealing with a lot of MOQ issues, which I need to grow past. So every time you order below 300 meters, you get a surcharge of whatever, 30%, 50%. If you manufacture below 30 pieces or below 100 pieces in some countries, then you get a surcharge. So a surcharge is left and right and left and right. So it's really important for us to keep that communication with the manufacturers, with the mills, really, really close. Tell them what we're doing, show them what we're doing, show them what we're trying to have them work with us, which is something I'm really focusing on, because that is, again, the people who are kind of preparing already have the product for us, right? So margins are definitely my bottleneck, but I don't want to increase the prices, because I feel it needs to be a fair price for the product. I started another brand earlier, and we also, like, you want to offer a good product at a fair price. It's just the industry is a little bit difficult. um, for smaller brands, because of those surcharges, which I do understand they have, obviously, but
Interesting. And why the price increase resistance? Have you spoken with customers? Maybe that would help. Like just getting to speak with them and telling them, we're thinking about increasing prices 10%, 5%, or whatever you need to increase them.
5% or 10% don't even do that much for me, because if you sell a dress at 600 euros, divided by 2.7, divided by, la 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 la, that's gonna give me maybe 5 euros on a dress, which with my quantities is not that much. It doesn't do that much.
All right. Just or hypothetically, right? And maybe not 10, 50%, but whatever price would be the ideal percentage that you need to increase it. So why not just have those conversations and see what they think?
Because also, like, you're limiting yourself to an X amount of stores if you increase your price. So there needs to be a balance within price points and amount of stores that you are, and quantities in the end, because quantities make your life easier. And if I'm going to increase all my prices, there's a less amount of stores that might be interested in selling the brand, which means less quantities. There needs to be a healthy balance in that. And to my knowledge, this should be a healthy price point to have your quantities and have your beautiful product. It just takes time to get over the bump.
Interesting. And why not? And I'm asking you this because obviously I want to hear your opinion and your thought process. Uh, why not compromise on the price increase? Yes, lower the potential wholesale accounts that you can have, but then diversify and find a balance between D2C with a higher profit margin, especially now that you've increased D2C pricing and wholesale. Sure, you're narrowing down your wholesale, but again, usually the most important wholesale accounts can handle a hot price increase. How are you thinking about that? Like, what are your thoughts?
So my so basically you're saying sell more directly to consumer, right?
Well, if the bottleneck is the profit, because the profit is the one thing that is stopping you from either reinvesting in the people that you need to expand sales,
Yeah.
or just kind of like taking that next step on the production infrastructure. Uh, why not just instead of just focusing wholly on wholesale for distribution, if you increase margins, sure, you might lose a couple of accounts, or you would limit the types of accounts that you will get, and then use the
Yeah,
profits that you have for D2C.
but
So
then,
it will
yeah, but
affect revenue, but it will increase profitability, and slowly you can diversify your revenue channels.
definitely. Of course, that is an aim, but it is something that, again, I am not good at, and that we are, slowly trying to learn and expand a little bit better. Because if people don't know where to find you, they're not going to buy you, right? And at this point, we have around 45 to 50 retailers. We've been doing this for about 2.5 years. People don't know us yet. So it is very important to be shown at those retailers, because we do get customers from them. People do see these are the kind of stores that sell the brand. They come back, they look at it, they see the brand name over and over again. My strength is not finding these people online and wanting them. I cannot have them commit to these kind of priced items without them having seen it in a store or touched it in a store. So that is a slower process. I think it needs to hang and be seen and be felt before we can get these customers confidently buying the garments online from us directly, which is of course the aim, because I would love to have that margin in between cutouts. But I also do believe that it's very important to be physically in the stores and for people to experience a new brand with new shapes, with new materials. Especially, I mean, I know I'm not super expensive, but I'm also not cheap, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
So
Um,
it's yeah, there's a trajectory there. Like,
yeah.
yeah,
What's the best thing? Of course. No, I understand.
steps, I think.
Understood. Okay, Fleur, and final question before we wrap up the conversation. Out of all the challenges that you faced, what would be like, do you think would be the most important piece of advice that you'd give yourself? But let's make it more like strategic than like, I don't know, be more patient and work harder, right? Let's be strategic and specific. Let's say learn how to vet agents, right? Or understand how to sell your brand to retailers. Again, I don't know. What it would be specifically in your case?
Yeah, it's definitely the sales area. Like before you start, dive into that knowledge that you lack. And then especially whether it's production, in my case, it was sales and PR marketing. Dive into it and kind of get the knowledge before even starting to do anything, because before you know it, you have something in your hands that you can't sell, or you have something in your hands that you can't produce. So in that sense, try and get your knowledge as much as possible from whoever is around you, or like I said, do an internship for 3 months, one day a week. Just get as much information on the subjects that you don't know, the subjects you feel comfortable with, or that you feel you have a talent for. That will come out. But get the knowledge from people, companies around you. See how they do, see the struggles that they face, how they communicate with people. Yeah, focus on the stuff you don't know.
Um, Amazing stuff. That's great. That's great advice. That's a great conversation. Again, very unusual. Typically my conversations are flipped. Um, in terms of the topics that we talk about, it's usually more
We
like
didn't even
marketing
talk
sales
about
driven.
design.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's usually more like marketing, sales, design driven. But it's interesting, right? Because this is the 80% of the industry that you don't know about until you actually.
Yeah, and I guess one other thing is, really don't be shy to reach out to manufacturers and to mills. Like literally, I've the people are very nice and open to kind of give you information. You don't have to pretend like you already know it to be to reach out to somebody. Just, write those emails. Just get information from people because people do want to help.
Amazing. Sorry, I was just writing down a final note for the editing at the end of the episode.
Yeah.
Amazing. No, that's amazing, Flo. That's an amazing conversation. Thank you for the time, of course. Thank you for the
You're so
information. I
welcome.
think people are gonna find it very, very valuable. And yeah, as I mentioned, I will send the recording later today, whenever kind of like I think I have one last meeting after this one. So I'll try to wrap
All
it up
right.
so you can review everything. But I'll keep you updated, right? As long as the editing process goes forward, I'll keep you updated at every stage so that you can have a look before we release it. And yeah,
Thank
do you have any last questions or comments?
you. No, I don't. But I wish, like, sometimes it is, if you're not an English speaker, and I could have thought about the answers a little bit.
Mm.
I might have thought that I could make it more valuable.
I think it was amazing, to be honest. I think it's mostly the time constrictive, and also the challenge with interviews is, of course, I understand what you mean, and yes, of course, the more you understand what you're going to speak and you can reflect upon it, the better. But usually, good conversations, and I've been interviewing people for like 7 years. Good
Yeah,
conversations have a a good foundation, a good direction,
yeah,
but then the rest is based on how the conversation evolves. Because our jobs, or at least I believe my job as an interviewer, is to understand the direction where I want to take. So essentially have kind of like a
yeah.
hypothesis for
I
the
understand
interview,
what you mean.
and then
Yeah,
understand my guest, and then something unique will come up, something that they don't recognize about
yeah, I
themselves,
understand.
their
Yeah,
strategy, themselves, their mindset, their approach, their mistakes, and then kind of like make the interview adapt to those
yeah, I understand.
specific
I understand what you mean. I understand what you mean. Yeah, I totally understand what you mean. But like, I am happy to share my knowledge. So, yeah, I hope it was enough.
I think it was amazing. And by the way, I will tell you this. If you are happy to share your knowledge, I don't know if I mentioned this, but we also have private communities of entrepreneurs. Like that's kind of
Yeah,
like the next foundation of kind of like the educational company that we're
yeah.
building. They're all private and they're all vetted. So we have three communities, or we're building three communities at different tiers. One for like fashion entrepreneurs making like 20 to 100,000 per year, one for entrepreneurs making from 100 to a million, and another from 1 million to 10 million. I would I would suggest you join, because most of the entrepreneurs that we have, I don't know which tier you're at. I'm guessing you're at the 100 to a million range, but most of the people at that range
Yes.
are actually much better at the front end, the marketing and the design, and need more
Okay.
help on the thing that you know about. So if you want
Okay.
to join, I'll send you an invitation. Right now, we're not
Yeah.
charging anything for it. So I
No,
was yeah.
please do, because I love. I can talk about that stuff forever.
Right. That's amazing. Yeah, I would love that. I think it would bring so much value to the community. I think you could learn a lot from what people are doing from a
Yeah.
sales perspective.
Yeah. Sounds perfect.
Amazing. I'll
Yes.
send you the interviews then, Flo. And I'll send you the thing about the communities, and I'll think about who specifically I should introduce you to. But I'll give it a good thought, because there's somebody within that I think you should meet, this regardless if you join or not. But
Sounds
I'll
like
keep
a
you updated.
cool. Super nice meeting you.
Likewise, Flo. And again, thanks for the time. It really means a lot.
Anytime. Anytime, really.
And if you're ever in Tokyo, you should make a market visit, with how it's the brand's developing here.
I know, I know, I know. But these budgets.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'll definitely let you know.
Yeah. Let me know. And my
Okay.
suggestion, it should be quick, because with the yen situation, it is as affordable as it's gonna be in probably life. So,
It is tough. It's
yeah,
tough, dude. Asia at this moment is like a
yeah,
difficult market.
yeah.
And it's my biggest one. So
Yeah, no, it's going through difficult. That's why I'm very surprised, because the Japanese market is going through it very heavily, especially with
yeah.
some brands. But if you're in the position that you are in, it's a very loyal market. You don't have the inconsistencies that you have with Western markets. And the
Right.
annoying parts, right? The negotiations, the cutthroat culture.
Yeah.
It's difficult to tap
Such is
into, but yeah, I can talk about the market forever. I mean, I moved there. I lived here for a reason. So yeah, let's stay in touch for it. All right.
yeah, let's do. Okay. Thank
Amazing.
you.
Speak soon.
Bye.